Chapter 11 Legend of Pequeño. In the ancient world, the most famous source of the color purple was attributed to the town of Tyre, hence the name Tyrolean purple. The color was a reddish purple. One of the earliest immigrants to Estolia was a man from Tyre, with his wife, brother, and brother's wife. They recognized the potential when they spied the Tarsus snail. They compared it to the snails used in Tyre and found that there were similarities and differences. The Tarsus was edible and delicious, but the purple was obvious the instant the snail was crushed. In addition, the Tarsus was a much smaller snail with a very fragile shell. From research done on the Tyrolean snails, there are other quite significant differences. The biggest difference was in the color produced. Estolian purple was closer to blue than red. Later, once the dye was perfected, it was traded to those in Tyre so that they might make a richer, more royal dye. In this way, Estolia grew wealthy while escaping notoriety. Meredith Zakarian, History of Estolia. For Estoliana, the man who pulled her from the sea, Zacharias, reminded her of the statues created by Antarin, the palace sculptor in Anoxes. He was almost too perfect. Tall, well-defined muscles, broad shoulders, and slender hips. During the battle against the pirates, she watched from her hidden position among the bales of hay. He moved with grace despite his large size, and was the type of man a maiden would wish to have as a protector, as more than a protector. If her father had decreed that she was to be his mate, she would not have rebelled. His instinctive reaction to a perceived threat, when the willow-wall bird startled him, revealed his character, willing to protect the woman who was with him, even though she was a stranger. She felt safe knowing he was with her on the island. Thinking about safety reminded her of her reasons for fleeing Anoxes. She was gathering eggs in the fowl yard and checking on their broody hen to see if her eggs were close to hatching. From her position kneeling next to the nest, she was not visible when her father and the captain of the guard, Standish, entered the barn. She idly stroked the hen, one of her favorite birds, while watching and listening to the two men. Standish was leading Galadin, a magnificent bull her father coveted ever since their own bull sickened and died. With the breeding season upon them, he had been desperately searching for a bull to set to his cows. He could not allow his entire flock to remain fallow for the season. The two men were discussing Galadin's superior size and conformation. Estoliana was pleased that her father had not only replaced his former bull, but managed to secure the one animal he wanted above all others. "I promised Petros," Standish said, "that you would allow him to select two of Galadin's issue prior to the spring market season." Her father's next words had her listening in horror and disbelief. "Estoliana will provide you many fine sons. The nuptials will be an auspicious opening for the winter festival." The rest of their conversation was lost to her as her mind raced over the implications. Bitterly, she realized she was worth nothing more to her father than a bull. She would be turned over to Standish, regardless of her feelings, regardless of his record with women. She couldn't do it. That night she made plans. She would use the artifice her mother taught her, hide her beauty, and run away. One of her friends, Davina, had moved to the seaport, whereupon a sea captain took her as a mate. She travelled to her friend's new home, but Davina pointed out that the captain would, if he discovered her, return her to Standish, so she slept in the hayloft over the stable. During the days, she spent time in the markets disguised as an old woman, listening carefully to passing conversations and trying to find a place to go where she would be safe. This was the first time she heard the legend of Pequeño. A few days after she hid in the loft, Davina visited to tell her, "Berto will be returning in 2 or 3 days." She did not meet Estoliana's eyes when she said, "I fear that he will see that I am deceiving him." "I do not wish to cause you problems, Davina." Estoliana glanced at the slight bulge of her friend's pregnancy. Her mate, Berto, did not know that she was bringing him the fruit of their marriage bed. She was looking forward to surprising him, but it would be marred if she was trying to keep a secret at the same time. She asked, "Have you heard of Pequeño?" "I've heard of it. It is between Izquierdo and Pulmara. Isn't there some legend about it?" They spoke for some time discussing the legend. When they were done, the two women had a plan. Estoliana would wait until dark, and then she would sneak aboard the Ancamoon, a merchant vessel bound for the mysterious southeast of Centrath. It would stop at Izquierdo and then head to Pulmara, passing close enough to Pequeño for her to swim there. There was a risk she would be discovered, but she would rather risk the unknown over submitting to Standish and his vile temper. Sneaking aboard the merchant vessel was easier than she expected, and she was able to hide among the horses. Her attention snapped back to the present. She was now alone on Pequeño with Zacharias. He began to pull supplies out of the cloth bag he carried with him, spreading out the rich bedding he told her was once destined to grace the bed of a pharaoh. The location he selected was in a slight depression thick with grasses which would make soft bedding. He made only one bed. She turned away from him and started to rummage in one of the bags she brought from the damaged crates. She had fruit, bread, cheese, olive oil, and wine. She found a couple of boulders that were at the same height and perfectly placed so she could lay the plank on top of them. It was a serviceable table. She spread a couple of the cloth bags onto it as a tablecloth. Upon this makeshift table, she placed the container of wine and the 2 glasses. Setting the loaf of bread to one side, she poured some of the rich olive oil in a broad shell she'd collected from the rocky beach. With fruit and cheese, it was a feast fit for kings. They might not dine as well in the future, but they would dine well tonight. They ate the meal quietly while the sun dropped towards the horizon. When they were done, she asked him to share his story with her. He smiled in response to her request, and she noticed just how good-looking he was. He had grey eyes, dark hair, and a beautiful face. "My father is very healthy. Our family are long-lived, and he will be active farming the land for another 20 years. But when he is ready to pass the land on, it will go to my brother." He shrugged. His voice didn't seem to hold the edge of hurt. "My brother is the oldest. It is right that it will go to him. I had 2 choices. I could stay and work the soil by my brother's side, or I could seek my fortune and my future in foreign lands." "You are not bitter?" "No, Estoliana. My brother Phineas knew I would not return. My father said I would need to journey until I found myself, and when I did, I would know it and remain there. I have been traveling for 5 years, working as a hired sword. I feel as if I have found myself." His hand swept in a wide gesture, taking in the beautiful island surrounding them. His voice was rich with pleasure when he said, "This land has taken a hold of my soul." This was her destination. She wanted to make this place her home. She did not know how to respond to his assertion. He continued, "Deity sent us both here. Bless this land for our use." She wished she could see his face, see the underlying meaning behind his words. They did not have a fire, and the last vestige of the sunset was now fading away in the night sky, making it impossible to see his features.